Hey, this is Mr. Ng going over the Math 5 factoring test, August 23rd, 2019. This is version C. True or false? Question number 2 below has a greatest common factor. So if I look down here, I'll just do question number 2 and then answer that. So 10x minus 10, 20x minus 10 has the factors of 10 times 2 minus 10 times 1, and then I see that the greatest common factor there is my 10s, sorry, so I have 10, I forgot the x right there, so I get 2x minus 1, and that would be choice B. Now I want to show you how although the 2 is a common factor, how would you do the problem? So if you did this, something like this, the factors of 10 would be 5 times 2 times x minus 1 times 5, and then this 5 is going to come out. So you're left with 2 times 5, which is 10, and then 2x minus 1, which is the same answer we got. So 2 is a common factor, but not the greatest common factor. Same thing for C over here. 5 times 4x can be 2 times 2 times x, and then negative 2 can be negative 1 times 2. And then the 2 is your greatest common factor, so it comes out right there. So those are gone. 5 times 2 is 10, and then you have 2x minus 1. So again, 5 was a common factor, not the greatest common factor, and you can always distribute to check your answer. So what's your greatest common factor? The answer is true for question number 1. Question number 3, multiple choice. Factor the trinomial completely if the polynomial cannot be factored, right, prime. So I have ax squared plus 7x, oh sorry, I went to write b's, ax squared plus bx plus c. This is our standard form. And when you have a quadratics, meaning power of 2, then you can factor a equals 1, b 7, and c is negative 18. So a times c, 1 times negative 18 is negative 18. My b value is 7. So now I need to think of all the numbers. 18 and 1, 9 and 2, 6 and 3. Notice how I put the larger number on the left, so you can kind of do a subtraction going across. The only one that does 7 is 9 and 2. So some combination of these two numbers, that'll be a negative 2. 9 times negative 2 equals negative 18, and 9 plus negative 2, or 9 minus 2 equals 7. Now here is your, let's go ahead and give you the trick. The trick is, if your a value is equal to 1, which is in our case, you only need to do the box. Sorry, try that again. If a is equal to 1, you only have to do the x. Nah, looks messy. Let's try that over here. A equals 1, you're just going to do the x. If a is greater than 1, you're going to have to do the x in the box. So this is kind of like the trick. It's not a trick, it's just like a pattern. And the reason why I didn't tell students this earlier is because it's so easy just to not use, or just use the x, and it's just easier just to tell you keep using the x in the box. So the answer is x plus 9 from here, and x minus 2, which would lead us to choice B. Now let me show you how the box does work, and you get the same answer. First term right here, which is x squared. Last term always goes in the bottom right, negative 18. And then these two terms come from these two. So there you can write. So now I have 9x and negative 2x. And then what we're going to do here is we're just going to factor. So then I get GCF is x, and then over here, here's your hint, negative 2, your hint 9. So let's double check. My multiplying x times x is x squared, negative 2x, 9x, and negative 18. And then these would be your answer, which gives you the same thing. Question number 4. It says one factor of 3x squared plus 11x minus 4 is Remember, each of these up here from the previous problem, this is a factor and this is a factor. Think of it as kind of like 2 times 1. 2 is a factor, 1's a factor. So if I factor this, then it's saying one of these will be one of the answers over here in the multiple choice. Okay, so let's factor this. Again, A is 3, B is 11, and C is -4. Notice how your A, B's, and C's are all numbers. So because A is equal to 3, and that is bigger than 1, so I'm going to have to use the X in the box. Okay, so let's do it. A times C is 3 times -4, which is -12. And your B value is 11. Two numbers that multiply to be 12, but add to be 11. So I can list out all the factors, gives me a visual of what's going on. So any of those can add or subtract to be 11. I see this one right here, 12 and 1. So you get, now this kind of, let me show you what happens. This is why some students who misapply the trick. You might write something like this, x plus 12, x, well the answer here would be, have to be -1. So they'll write x minus 1, and they'll say this is your answer factored. And I'll tell you why this is wrong. Because if you did the box or FOIL, you'll recognize that x times x is x squared, not 3x squared. So that's why it's wrong. This is bad. Let's write that. Bad. That's why A is greater than 1. Make sure you use the x in the box. Let's go ahead and fill this out. 3x squared always goes here. -4 always goes in the last one. And then, of course, these two that you just figured out will always go in there. So now I have 12 and an x and a -1x. So you have to add an x. The reason why this yellow term, what it does, it's splitting the 11x. And then here we're just going to take the greatest common factor. Greatest common factor in this direction is going to be an x. Greatest common factor is of this column is 3x. And then here's your hint, -1. -1 times x is x, 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times something equals 12x, the answer would be a 4. And this 4 is positive, so 3x times 4 is 12x, and -1 times 4 is -4. So our factors are 3x minus 1 and x plus 4. And then I'm going to look over here. I see 3x minus 1 is one of my choices. X plus 4 is not on there, so my choice would be C, because it's one of these. Question number 5. Multiple choice factor completely. X squared minus 4x plus 4. Again, I would put standard form right above it or below it, and then you can recognize A is 1, B is -4, and C is 4. So if you apply our trick, our x, A times C is 4, B value is -4. Two numbers that multiply to be 4, but add to be -2, those two numbers are -2 and -2. And if we apply our trick, because A is 1, I only have to use the x, so these are our answers. That would be x minus 2, parentheses, parentheses, x minus 2. Now, let's just say I'm about to go to In-N-Out to pick up dinner for the family. Normally, we would not say, can I have 1 cheeseburger and can I have 1 more cheeseburger? Normally, if you have it all together, you would say, can I have 2 cheeseburgers? And I've showed that to you on previous tests. I think this is the most simplified, although this is not wrong. Yeah. And question number 6, r squared minus 49. So if you don't like the r's, you can just pretend it's an x. Let's keep it r's. So I have r squared minus 49. And you might be asking, why did I leave a big space there? That is for 0r. And then you have an a value that is 1. You have a b value that is 0, and a c value that is negative 49. And you can put it into your x, a times c, and a b value. A times c is negative 49. My b value is 0. Two numbers that multiply to be negative 49. So hopefully you added that to your formula sheet. Multiply. And then down here, those same two numbers will have an add, or their sum is 0. So the same, it's going to be two exact same numbers, because positive 7 and negative 7 will add to be 0, but multiply to be negative 49. So the plus 7 and the minus 7 go into our factored form. So our plus 7 and our minus 7 is our answer, and that would be choice D. So on the front side, there are 6 multiple choice questions, times 2 points each, so that's 12, and then 2 points, 1 point for writing your name nicely, and 1 point for circling the period. Then that's out of 14. Okay, question number 7 on the back side says free response directions. Make sure to show all your work and box your answers. Question number 7, factor completely, and then if you can solve it, 1 extra credit point. So I noticed that this quadratic is not set equal to 0, so I'm going to have to move this 8k across the equal sign, so you will do the opposite. So this is positive, so you'll have to subtract, or negative. 2k squared minus 8k minus 10 equals 0. Now, when you're always factoring, you always want to ask the question, is there a GCF? And the answer is yes. How do I do that? You recognize that all the coefficients here are even. You can always break them down into prime factors. Minus 4 times 2 times k minus 5 times 2. So if you you recognize that they all have a 2, so the 2 is the GCF. So then I'm left with k squared minus 4k minus 5 equals 0. Now I'm going to use my highlighter strategically to highlight what's inside the parentheses, because that is what I'm going to use for my x, or factoring. So a times c is going to be 1 times the negative 5, which is negative 5, and my b value is negative 4. And then the two numbers are 5 and 1. This is a negative number, so that means the bigger number has to be negative. So my answer will be negative 5 and 1. So this is negative 5, and this is positive 1. So then I get k minus 5 and k plus 1. So this would be your answer in being factored completely. If for somehow reason you did not see the GCF, then you can do something like this. Just want to show you a different solution. I subtracted 8x, same thing, and then my a value was 2, b value is negative 8, c value is 10, and then I did the same thing. What you get is you get these factors, and you just pull out the 2 in front. So that's another way of doing the problem. And then here we're just going to solve. All you need to do is set each of these equal to 0. 2 equals 0, k minus 5 equals 0, and k plus 1 equals 0. 2 equals 0, no, that is no solution. Add 5 here, so k equals 5 is one of my solutions, and subtract 1, you get k equals negative 1 as your other solution. So if you wanted the extra credit, that's how you would get those two. How would I award the points? If you're able to identify the GCF or the A, B, and C are correct, then you only get 2 points out of the problem. If you can get 3.5 points if your X puzzle is correct, or your box is very close to being correct. 3.75 points out of 4 if the inside of your box, inside the box, is correct. Maybe your factors or the parentheses is wrong, and then you get 4 points if you were all correct. I'll be using this 4-point scale for the 4 multiple choice questions, or free response questions. Question 8a, identify the A, B, and C. Notice how they are not on the same side of the equal sign. How do you move that number? You subtract 10. So I get x squared minus 7x minus 10 equals 0. And then if you write standard form right below it or next to it, you'll be able to see that A is equal to 1. And a B value is equal to -7. And C value is -10. Notice they're all numbers. There are no x's in there. And integers or the positive and negatives do matter. That was out of 3 points. Now it says factor completely the polynomial in question 8a. So let's go ahead and factor this. Well, we already have some head start here. A times C. A times C here is 1 times -10 is going to be -10. Use that calculator, no shame. B value is -7. Two numbers that multiply to be 10. So if you need to list out all the numbers, you can. Super helpful. So I know it's going to be 5 and 2. They need to be multiplying to be negative, but add to be a negative. So let's double check. 5 and 2. I'm thinking there are no two numbers, because if I make this both negative, -5 plus a -2 gives me -7, but -5 times a negative gives me a positive, so this one would be prime. What does that mean? Prime factor. It basically means you can't factor this. Can't factor. And well, how do I describe prime? Again, that's like a prime number, like 11. 11 cannot be broken down to other factors. It's just 11 in itself and 1. So I can't factor anymore. Let me double check. -10 looks good to me. So to get full credit, you're going to have to write the word prime factor. I might take off some points if you write can't factor, and then this puzzle should kind of help you. Question number 9, factor completely. A is 1, B is 2, and C is -8. A times C, -8. B value is 2. My two numbers are going to be 4 and 2. They have to be multiplying to be a negative number, so one of these has to be a negative. This will be a -2. 4 plus -2 gives me 2. And then because your A value is equal to 1, you're using the shortcut. You can use the original letters. R 4 here is positive, and there is negative, so this is my answer. Now, if you went ahead and changed these to x's and you wrote x plus 4 and x minus 2, totally fine, full credit. If you're using the box, remember how to use that. R squared, -8, the last term always goes in the bottom right. And then these two values are the numbers that we just got in our x. And you're adding an r there. So 4r, -2r. And then here you're just factoring. So r and an r is your greatest common factor. Greatest common factor there, sometimes there's a hint right there, so that'll be -2. And then my hint here is going to be +4. Remember, when there's nothing there, it's a positive, so r times r is r squared, r times negative 2 is negative 2r, r times 4 is 4r, and negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. And then there's your answers, negative 2 and positive 4. Remember, it doesn't matter which order you put those in. And then question number 10 tells you to factor completely. So the first question I'm going to ask, which we should have asked in the previous problem, was there a GCF? So let's take a look at it and break down in factors. 5 times p minus 37p times p plus 42, or 6 and 7, or 2 and 21. But I'm going to leave it as 42. And I realize that 37 is a prime number. I can't break it down anymore. So the only thing they have in common are these p's. So p is your GCF. And if you see me in the previous videos writing the equal sign there, it's just to show that this expression is equal to this expression. So now I have 5p squared, negative 37p, and then positive 42. Okay, how do I factor this bad boy? We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to use my x in my box. And I use my x in my box. I have, remember, sorry, I should use a different color here. Let's use red. This here in the inside will be my A, B, and C. So my A value is 5, B is negative 37, and my C value is 42. So A times C is going to give me 0 extra 1, 210, and my B value is going to be negative 37. So some big numbers, so super helpful to list out all your factors, which I'm going to do. So was there a GCF? And the answer is yes. So 210 times 1, 2 times 105, 3 times 70, 4 does not work, 5 is going to work, 5 goes into 21 4 times, and then 5 goes into 10 1 time. 6, 7, I get 30. Let's see if that works. I think that's enough, right? Let's see. Let's see. These two numbers, if I make them both negative, let's see if that works. Because if I multiply, it gives me positive 210, and if I add those together, that will give me negative 37. So let's try it. So I have 5p squared, and then the middle terms that I just worked on go in those two boxes. Zoom out a little bit. So then I have negative 30 p, negative 7p, and then the last one is a positive C value of 42. Well, here they do not have a greatest common factor of 5, it'll just be a p. This one's going to be a 5p. This one will have to be a 5 times something equals negative 30, that would be negative 6. And then this one will have to be a negative 7. Right? Negative 7 times p is negative 7p. Negative 7 times negative 6 is positive 42. And so, bring that down, I get p minus 6, and 5p minus 7. Let's double check. This will give me 5p squared, negative 7p, negative 30p, and positive 42. That would work. So I'm going to go and box all my answers in blue for all of these questions. Up there, and then over here. And then do that one for this one. So that's going to be 4 times 3 is 12 plus 1 3-point question. I think I'm wrong. 16, can't count. So 4 times 4 is 16 plus the 3 would give us 19. And then 19 plus 14 gives me 33. And then if you didn't box your answers, we have that circled, or maybe your paper's messy, usually scribbling. Then we subtract those, and then your final score should be circled right there. Hope that was helpful for you.
Math.
Say it again.
Our math.